Welcome to Deep Americana.
Welcome to a special two-part interview with renowned sculptor and artist Willie Cole, also known as the archaeological ethnographic Dadaist. Check out the links we added to the episode so you can see his work while listening. And please, enjoy. So Willie, I'll start this out. I actually met you in Wichita, Kansas. You were speaking, I believe, in the mid 2000s. You blew my mind, man. The Suicide Virgin, to get to the other side, the lawn jockeys, man.
Oh yeah,
the chickens, the Last Supper. That really it helped me to think about the idea of terrorism and how that's applied. You know.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Hey, I'm glad when you were touched by the work, man.
Well, and I've been looking at the other work that you've been producing. You know, where you're using domesticated objects with African culture and even and plastic bottle mandalas. Man, it's profound, and it is empowering on a lot of levels to I think a lot of different people.
Wow.
I feel like
it's empowering to me. I mean, I'm sitting in my living room now with a nice big 8-foot diameter mandala on the wall made out of water bottles that I love, especially when the sun shines on it.
Yeah. I have other friends that make art, and things of that nature that have been going to kind of the recycling route for their work, as well. And I think you may have influenced that.
Yes, I see. It's I'm not the only one these days.
No, indeed not.
There's even an artist I found on Instagram who is making scorches with a hot steam iron like me.
Yes, I found that piece amazing as well. I remember that because I've lived, I've lived in bad places, or not bad places, but places that were heavily cockroached. And
me too.
Yeah. So I've been there too.
I've never heard cockroach used as a verb before.
Oh, well, I'm not as verbally as astute as you, my friend, but.
Oh no! Listen, I grew up in a cockroach environment. Now you turn up the kitchen light, and then come back, you got wall-to-wall cockroaches.
Right. Yeah.
That was my life up until the 6th grade. So.
Yeah.
I understand.
I floated from home to, my mother was extremely schizophrenic, and so I lived in what you could call the hood at times, and then I'd live with other family members subsequently that were like in Georgia, and so I saw like a difference in cockroaches in Georgia are as big as your fist and they can fly, but I also had the experience where you turn the lights on and they scatter as well. That's why those pieces resonate with me highly. I've been there.
No, I know. I was at a fellow at UGA in 2005.
Right.
So I lived in Georgia that year, and I had a couple of giant cockroaches in my apartment.
Yeah. So I've got some questions here, man. If so, in your work, you use domestic objects, and are you blurring the line of high art and folk art by doing that, by using domestic objects?
You could say that I'm blurring the lines, but really I'm just in the tradition of a little Picasso,
right.
A little Art Provera. I think it was Mario Merz in Art Provera. And, Klaus Oldenburg. It's almost pop art for me to use a popular, common, everyday object. I think that the way that I assemble the things is akin to folk art in a lot of ways.
Right.
Especially nowadays, because this stuff is not fabricated. It's not, it's the original stuff. I don't
right.
paint it. I use it just as I find it. Right. And I tell myself that I'm making objects for the real world, not just for a gallery or museum. So if I'm making, say, a mandala out of water bottles, I'm making it for its spiritual value. not just its decorative value,
Right.
not just to hang in a museum, but to bring energy into my environment. So that's kind of, I guess that's the point where spirituality and commercial art practice collide in folk art. You know, if you think about that artist, he was a painter. What's his name? I met him in Georgia, but he was a folk art painter, and all of his work was about the Bible.
Okay.
You know, so I think that folk art is the place where spirituality and fine art come together.
Well, hey, it's
not so much blurring the line, but peeling back the layers.
So another thing that I've noticed throughout your career, man, is that you form communities, and so I guess what I'm getting at there is what does it do for others and for you to empower other people, you know, and to form communities? What's that about?
Well, for me, it helps me to recognize who I am, even when I feel like less than myself. Like I have a young assistant, and he clings to every word I say, and I say, when I'm talking to you, I'm also talking to myself. I'm reminding myself of this journey and this goal. So that like makes him like a believer, like a follower almost.
Right.
And he clings to every word I say. So that happens. I think people need to have role models or road maps even.
Right.
And I've been that for a lot of people. And my own road map.
Yeah.
I have to tell you quite honestly, I say like in 1985, I worked as an art handler at the Studio Museum in Harlem.
Right.
And there were 3 artists in the studio at that time. One was Terry Atkins. So I became friends with these 3 artists. And I watched them over the years and realized that the one that had the road that looked like the good road to me was Terry Atkins.
Okay.
So I tended to follow that road for a while. And I guess I'm saying this to say that every artist, you have to find somebody who's on that track that you want to be on, so you can recognize, you know, the steps that you need to take.
Right.
I guess because I'm not the one I'm not pretending, I'm just living.
Right.
And I speak clear, so that resonates with people. I guess that's what it is. I don't know. I never thought of it as building communities.
Well, but I think you did, you know. Didn't you start, you started the film department where you went to college, didn't you? Or the stage department or something?
Oh, yes. That was in high school.
In high school, even. Yeah.
High school. Well, it was just that, you know, we needed it.
Right.
I mean, I was writing plays and things in high school, and I needed to have a group of people to put them on the stage.
Right.
So I convinced one of the English teachers to help us start that department.
Cool.
And it's just that filling the needs, basically. Like when I lived in Newark, I had a studio I turned into a gallery because there's only one gallery in town, and they were not. And that gallery was not showing artists of color.
Right.
At that time, anyway. So there was a need for it. So it had to be done.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like, you know, especially helping each other out, you know.
Yeah, and again, it's learning for me too.
Yeah.
I know when I first moved back to Newark after having worked in theater for a couple of years out of state, I moved into a loft, and I took on a full-time job as a computer graphics artist. So I was doing graphic design on the computer, but I was using my loft as a gallery.
Right.
So I started a nonprofit corporation, and I had showed works of all the local artists at that time. And that was my version of graduate school, because I didn't go to graduate school.
Right.
But all these artists I showed had gone to graduate school.
Right.
So speaking with them, looking at their work, asking what they're reading, so it feeds me as well as the people around me.
Right. Yeah, it's a mutual thing. It's a positive thing, very positive.
Yes, and that's how energy works. One person can generate. I guess the birds are a good example. You see, there's always one bird in the lead, but they take turns. Mm-hmm. They're riding on each other's breeze to make the journey easier.
Right.
And I think it's the same way with organizations and people. Mm-hmm. So you learn and get strength and energy from everybody that you are around, as long as you're aware of the possibility and open to receive it.
Right.
And that's how I choose to live.
Well, that's amazing, man. With that, do you notice any differences in the protests you attended early on, and the protests now?
Well, the obvious difference is that the protests now are multiracial. I mean, the last time I marched in the streets was to end apartheid.
Okay.
I had my little son with me, might have been 8 or 9 years old, and we marched for apartheid in Brooklyn and in New Jersey. But it was an all-black crowd. So now it's different. It's everybody, and it should be. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, it definitely should be.
Another difference that I observed through the media, so it may not be a truth, but it's a media difference.
Okay.
Is the media doesn't show a leader; it just shows a crowd of people.
I've noticed that.
Back in the 70s and the 80s, there was always a leader that they would focus on.
Right.
So that's a big difference too. But I'm sure a leader must exist. That means social media has helped the crowds to get bigger. So somebody's orchestrating that.
Yeah, definitely. I tend to think sometimes too the media is just kind of spinning things.
Yeah.
And that's actually kind of terrifying. But yeah. I mean, it's this whole time period we live in right now is terrifying, but it's beautiful as well, because there's these progresses and realizations happening as well, but it's still terrifying.
It's terrifying. I told myself in the beginning that now is the time to live every day like it's the last day of your life, because you never know.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's cliche my whole life, but now it has real meaning for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could walk outside and anything could happen. People, it's nuts.
Yeah, you could just be in the wrong path of the wrong sneeze and your life is over.
Yeah.
So you gotta really stay on. So that's been good for me. That's brought me out in a lot of ways. Things that I didn't. Like, I played music, but I haven't played music, like, publicly in many, many years. Like, probably over 30 years or more.
Right on. I was gonna say I caught a little bit of it. I think you were covering a Bob Marley song. I caught on your Instagram or something. It sounded pretty good.
Yeah. So I said I started the quarantine thinking I would do that regularly, but it's really just a flow of creative energy.
Right.
So that energy slid back into my sculpture. So,
well, don't you have classical guitar training as well?
Yes, I studied classical guitar. I studied as an adult, though, because I started playing guitar as a little kid. I got a guitar, my first guitar in the 60s. When the Beatles came to the U.S., I begged my dad for a guitar.
Wow.
But because I was left-handed, I could never find a teacher. And because I was poor, I didn't have a big avenue for searching, just in the neighborhood.
Right.
So I played by ear all through high school, and in college, when I went to Boston U, I took a piano class, but I didn't know how to play the piano. But I sat and listened all the time, and I didn't expect to pass, but I wanted to be in the mix.
Right.
And I met this another student there who was a PhD candidate in the music department. And he and I became good friends. And this guy was like super gregarious, big personality. every day after lunch, he would get on the piano and play the greatest hits, like Stevie Wonder and all the songs of the 70s. Everybody would just clap and have a great time and sing along.
Oh, yeah.
And then he would look at me and say, okay, Willie, now you play. And I would sit down at the piano and go, bling, bong, bling, bong, bling.
Right.
And the crowd would disperse.
Right.
But that gave me determination.
Yeah, well, that's how you learn, too, you know?
Yes.
You
So
got to do it.
5 years later, I took piano lessons for 1 year.
Oh, okay.
Just to help my technique. So I was able to play by ear after a while. But when I moved out of the city to where I live now, I didn't have a piano. So I picked up my guitar again, and I started playing in my daughter's room every night by ear and enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided I would take some classical lessons, which I took for about 4 years.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I got a long way to go, but I love the vibration of the guitar. I think it's healing against the body. Yeah, and I play acoustic guitar. I mean, I had two electric guitars too.
Right.
I had electric all through high school and college, but nowadays I'm really interested in acoustic guitar. I like the country, I like bluegrass, I like jazz.
Cool.
I like folk, you know.
Have you ever listened to a guy who dropped out of, I think, Berkeley, getting classical guitar trained, Michael Hedges?
Oh, yeah, I know Michael.
Cool.
He passed away, though.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did. He was amazing.
No, that era where he was like very public was a big inspiration for me, because there were many guitarists at that time who I would say they played impressionistically.
Right. Okay.
That's the way Keith Jarrett describes his piano playing. So you just pick up the instrument, you just play, you just flow with the feeling of it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a 1-4-5 or the key of this, the key of that, but the feeling comes through.
Right.
And I did a lot of that with a friend of mine. We would do duets all over New Jersey. We would just go in with our guitars and sit down and play for like an hour, 2 hours with no plan.
Cool.
So I love Michael Hedges, yes.
Yeah. No, it's very, very good. And like to look at popular music and then look at how he played was just amazing, you know?
Yeah. And see, I feel that music and art are the same. As I say, creativity is like a force in the universe.
Right.
Just like gravity.
Right.
It's there for anybody to catch it. But you have to be aware that it exists and be willing to let it in.
Well, what do you think about this concept that, you know, somebody that has mental illness or has a disability, I feel like you can completely use creativity to heal or help deal with those issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, you can use arts. I don't know if you can get permanent healing, but it's very possible you can if you take the art to the point of color science and, you know, sound therapy.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say,
production, you only control the moment that they're producing.
Right. I was going to say one of the things too that I whenever I think about that idea is that how many visual artists, musicians, you know, creative people in general are mentally ill, you know, so maybe that has furthered them, you know. I think.
Well, mental illness is a questionable term too, though.
Yeah, I don't like it.
What is sanity?
Right.
I mean,
right.
We measure people with ourselves as the center or the norm.
Right.
The further away from your center, the more insane they may seem to be.
Right.
Who knows?
You know, one of the things I want to throw this on there is that I think there's some kind of connection there in a way with the shaman and the schizophrenic person. Maybe they're tapped into the same thing. They're just in two different cultures. You know.
Yeah. Yes. No. I think that term "tap into" is what it's about for all of us. Like right now, I'm sitting here in front of CNN with the sound turned down. I'm tapped into their energy.
Right. Okay.
I think that a shaman is tapped into dimensional energies.
Right. Where,
you know, it's like the column that connects heaven and earth in the Greek architectural tradition. That column represents the connection between heaven and earth.
Right.
The letter I represents it's that connection, capital letter I. So I think a shaman has that same position
right.
in a tribal society.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not so much schizophrenia, but it's like the old-fashioned phone line. He's got an open line. He's got a party line.
Right.
You can hear the conversations tap into other calls.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Which, people who are not shaman can do also.
Right.
Insane people who hear sounds and voices. Maybe those voices and sounds, they really exist. Just the majority of people can't hear them or see them.
Right. Well, it's like cause my mother was schizophrenic and bipolar, very severely. And she would be talking to me, and this would be talking to me about things, and it was almost like she was viewing time as not linear when she was addressing things in a lot of these states of mind. And I don't know, that often made me think of, well, do you think time is linear?
No, I think that this is now should be a chart to draw this on.
Yeah.
But I think that we live in a stack.
Okay.
So yeah, there is a linear line that measures time. Right. But it's also a vertical line that measures time. But we move along that in a diagonal way. So it's a grid, and we are the diagonal line that moves along it. Our awareness determines which horizontal line we're moving along. So if I'm moving along the third horizontal line, but then I get a new awareness, my angle changes. I may go up to the next horizontal line and continue across that. And those horizontal lines, to me, represent awareness, but also dimensions, awareness of dimensions of existence. So. And I know it sounds crazy, but
no, it doesn't.
It's like this is a good example. It's a crazy example.
Okay.
I do not realize that Donald Trump was president for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was just 2 years.
Okay.
So that tells me I missed 2 years somewhere along the journey.
Right.
So what happened? I came to one of those points where I had a certain awareness, and my angle changed. I went up to the next horizontal line. So everything that happened on the next level, I don't have a memory of it.
Interesting.
I don't know. I've been trying to figure this out. This is something that just occurred to me 2 weeks ago.
What if for some reason you had shut that out so you didn't have to deal with it, man?
I don't know, but it's like saying that there are a stack of you. There's not just one of you, there are 20 of you.
Like a caterpillar almost?
If you're standing up.
Okay.
On two legs, a vertical stack.
Okay.
And you're all walking together. You all have the same experience, but one certainly has a different awareness. So he's going to move to a different level. Okay. So now the you that was on the second level and you that were on the first level are now one. Okay.
So it's kind of like the cone of vision from each one?
Yes. And you can merge with a higher level with your higher self just by obtaining awareness and knowledge.
Okay.
And sometimes that makes, at least in my case, makes me feel like I skipped some years and I remember that much time passing.
Right.
I mean, I know it existed because I live in today, which the present always talks about the past. So I know it exists.
Right.
But my remembrance of the experience of that time, of those years, doesn't exist for me anymore because I was moving diagonally during that time, not horizontally.
Right on.
So something like that. I've really been trying to figure it out. I've been thinking about it for years, but
you could say you're transcending to a higher, like the fifth dimension or something of that nature, and a dimension maybe that, a dimension that's not viewing the lower type of dimension, in a sense.
Yeah. Like there are many levels of existence.
Yeah.
The one that you're on is the one that you're conscious of.
Right.
But if you can get a glimpse of another one and connect to that, then you move up to that level, and your whole life is different. You feel the change.
Would you say like positivity has a role in that? Like keeping your mind positive?
Oh yeah, positivity is critical for everything, but positivity can be blinding because some people think positivity. I mean, I have to ask: is positivity a choice or is it a reality? Is it a state of being or a state of believing?
I think it's a state of believing.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be able to pay attention. And if you're about to cut your arm off, don't be positive, move your arm. You know?
Right. You have to pay attention for sure.
What I always say is you have to pay attention, not pay for attention.
Right.
Try to. You know?
Yeah, that's like I say, you have to live. You don't have to work for a living. You just have to live.
You know, I've been finding that out, I think, more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, that's the level that when I made my leap, that's where I went. Because I've been making a living for many years as an artist.
Right.
But I have not been thinking about it as just living.
Right. Well, it's just, lifestyle.
Yeah, so once I get to thinking of it as just living, I don't have to, there's no stress around it anymore.
Right.
And things just fall into place. Like I've had more success during this virus than I've had in many years.
That's awesome.
Lots of sales, lots of opportunities.
Right on, man.
And it's because I chose not to stress about it.
Man, you got to teach me how not to stress, because and I can tune it out, but at some points, seeing the George Floyd getting shot, seeing all this stuff, man.
I feel that stuff too. I'm talking about stress for me as an individual because of outside influences that distract us from our inner self the most.
Right.
So I'm very aware and empathetic and even sorrowful for all these things going on in the world.
Right.
But as an individual spirit existing in a human form, I recognize that I was not designed to suffer and struggle. So don't worry about it.
Right.
Just live. I would say, this is not hell, this is heaven. So what are you worried about?
Okay, yeah.
Is this a punishment or is this a gift?
And I think I can attest to that because at one point I had a pretty heavy drug addiction and I lived out of a car, right? And everything was pretty negative. I had a relationship that my ex-girlfriend had attacked me and broke my ribs and my nose and such. And I was in a real negative mind state and forgot a lot of the things that I had done, such as like podcasts and different things of that nature. And then I started turning more of a positive one, and...
Yes, he took you down one level.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I think I did too, take myself down too as well,
Yeah.
And it was a bad thing. The positivity is great. And it's sometimes it's hard to hold that, but I know at the beginning of COVID, of the racism coming to the forefront and things like that, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all of those guys getting killed, I know that I was profoundly stressed out. And it just, sometimes some things can take me off base, but I have learned within this time period of positivity, and it has helped tremendously, man.
Well, that's the power of media. That's why studies are paid so much, because they are feeding us ideas that are desirable for commercial or manufacturers.
Profit. Yeah, it's all profit.
They show you commercials to make you desire those products. They show you a story that's people having a bad life, and they see people having a happy life in the commercial to help you buy the products. And I always remember how when George Bush II became president, he came into office saying that things are going to get bad.
So he was preparing you it was going to be bad, giving you that message.
He was creating it with his words, in my opinion.
Okay.
He was putting our mindset in that space, because Clinton left the U.S. with a big surplus of cash.
Okay.
And everything seemed to be in a good space.
Right.
But then Bush came in talking gloom and doom, and before we knew it, we were there.
Well, yeah, then we had 9/11. Then we had the Patriot Act, which is, in my opinion, why a lot of this is happening today with the police brutality and things of that nature, man. The marketing within these things terrifies me as well.
Yeah. So I think all these things are just take our focus away from ourselves.
Well, yeah.
To be selfish and thinking about yourself.
Right, the I, me, and mine mentality. Yeah.
But just this is why people meditate. This is why the monks are in caves meditating.
Right.
Because they want to avoid the distractions that take you away from the opportunity, even takes you away from the opportunity to have a greater sense of awareness so that you can move forward. Not so much in capitalism, but just in life in general.
Right.
As a product of nature and coexisting and all that stuff.
Right.
So distractions are a big tool.
How do you think as a culture that we can get around these things and better ourselves? Because we need that.
I think they should teach transcendental meditation in schools.
Okay.
That would help.
Okay.
They were like from kindergarten forward. Some schools do that now. I think that we could use a program called the Good News Show.
What is that?
It doesn't exist, but there's good news every day too.
You are 100% right, and I love you for saying that. I love you for saying that because, yeah, man, I can't even watch the news.
No, I grew up in periods. I used to live with a journalist. She was an anchor from WPBI News in Philadelphia.
It must have been stressful.
Yes, we watched news constantly.
Man.
So when she and I broke up, I didn't watch news for years. 30 years.
I bet.
But then when 9/11 happened, my house was under renovation. I just moved back in on 9/11. And the contractor called me and said, turn on the TV. And I've been watching CNN ever since then.
I mean, what did you do after you turned the TV on?
On that day?
Yeah.
Oh, I called my wife. She was on her way to New York.
Oh, my goodness.
She was on her way to New York, and she was a woman who would not turn around.
Driven.
She's a great employee.
Cool.
It was a day of work.
Right.
Rain, snow, fire, hail, or locusts. She would not miss a day.
Well, right on.
So I called her. She wouldn't turn around. She asked me to call the school and pick up the kids. And the school wanted me to pick up the kids. So that became my day. It was a day of full-time parenting until she got home. But it was unbelievable because where we live is so far from New York. And I'm not in the city. I actually live in the woods.
Okay.
Near a stream, nice and quiet.
That sounds beautiful. I live in the heart of Denver.
I'm working. Yesterday, I'm working outside, and my audience was all deer.
That's awesome.
They walk by, they stop, they look, they continue on. I've had bears do the same thing while I'm working outside. Bears?
I've never encountered a bear, but I've been in the country quite a bit in my life, and having that calmness.
9/11 to me was almost like a made-for-TV event because it was so far from my immediate environment. That's how it felt that day.
That's crazy. I know. For me, I was in school, and they're like, "Do you want to go home?" And I was like, "Sure." I'm gonna go get high. I was really young, and I didn't even think about it. I remember the weeks after where we thought we were gonna have a gas shortage. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
It was wild. And then the selling of the idea of patriotism. That's why I found the work that we were talking about so profound, is because I feel like you brought the matchstick where the three chickens on a plane. You couldn't even get a water bottle on a plane, and that thing was one of the most flammable things. And I thought it was so ironic.
That was crazy. That was a crazy time. That was all my 9/11 work.
It's amazing work.
Yeah. Well, how do I say? I have a show coming up next month in Birmingham, Alabama, called Night in America. And of course, it's all about these times we live in. So I've made pieces for that involved the steam iron.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of inspired by this art critic once wrote that my work with scorches represented the various skin tones of black people.
Okay.
That had never crossed my mind before. I never even thought of it as that. But that was his lens. That's how he saw it. So I accepted that. So my new piece, I used the scorch to represent the people that have all been killed by the police.
It's awesome. Is it? Did you post an image of that on Instagram?
I post the process when I first started making it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I thought I saw some of your iron images with black people that have been brutalized by the police, which
that's the piece that I'm sitting down here to pick it up tomorrow. So it's like a graphic design piece, really. It's just the heads of the people, which are the scorches, and the name under each one. But there are thousands of them. Since 2000, there are over 2,000 people killed by police.
It's terrible. We need equality on all levels.
That's it for our first episode. We end here where me and Willie reminisce on him creating a chicken sculpture out of matchsticks and flying it on a plane with no restrictions after 9/11. As well as he keys us into his newer work where he takes the steam iron imagery further by representing people who have been killed by police. With that, please join us for part 2. Thank you.